So what do you blame for this like social contagion element or the 4,000% increase or whatever? How do you explain
TikTok.
that?
TikTok.
It's the one factor. It sounds silly, but it
It's
really
always
is.
TikTok. Yeah, you're right.
Is it really TikTok's fault?
Oh my God.
Not entirely.
Social
I think
media.
it's a really destructive collusion of big pharma who only stands to gain money. Because keep in mind, these kids that start on these blockers, hormone surgeries, they're lifelong medical patients. We're all lifelong medical patients unless we want to detransition. We're always there every month to pick up our prescriptions for hormones. We are, in some ways, slaves to big pharma. So that's another thing that I don't think minors,
sister.
right? Another minor can consent to that. So you think they really know that they'll be taking drugs for the rest of their life? Do you think the parents really know that? So yeah, there's parental consent, but then you have therapists who can't push back at all, or they'll get, lose their license. And then you have a lot of medical professionals that there's a very, very strange, and this might be too in the weeds with this shit, but there's a very, very strange, weird way that the ideology behind trans has captured people in the medical industry. A lot of these doctors are fucking weird.
Yeah.
A lot of these doctors are fucking weird. A lot of them have sexual fetishes for the trans people they treat. A lot of them are kind of like mad scientists in a lot of ways, in which they will say things can happen from the drugs you're taking that really can't. Like I've had a doctor say that you can lose height going on estrogen. You're not losing height on estrogen. If you're 60 on estrogen, you're gonna be 60 off of estrogen. So, and this is a doctor in Beverly Hills who a lot of the girls see.
I know who you're talking about.
I'm sure you do.
He fucks a lot of his patients for like surgery too.
Oh, I know.
And that's demented.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of girls who like would
people are
fuck him
stupid
for like
all
nose
over.
jobs.
You could fuck for surgery?
Well, that doctor you can. That
Fuck
doctor you
yeah,
can.
you fuck for anything, Adam.
No, he only treats like trans patients,
Yeah.
and like they'll literally be like, "Oh, yeah, I got a nose job, fucked him for it," So it's kind of like, oh,
Hi.
yeah.
So here's the thing. In the trans community, I think there's a lot of hurt people. There's a lot of people who, in a lot of ways, were disadvantaged in life because dealing with this crazy thing called gender dysphoria puts us back steps ahead. Like a lot of us didn't get to live our full lives until we were done with that process, or at least midway through it or whatever. And so it's like a lot of us are hurting. We don't have the mental capacity to deal with these larger issues of like, how do we protect kids? But also I'm trying to get my life in order and get my transition in order, and sports, who cares about sports? But at some point, some people in the community have to be like, okay, now we're on a point where we have to talk about these larger issues. So it is what it is what it is. Like,
where do you stand on sex work in our community?
I have nothing against sex work in the community. I have obviously, knowing a lot of trans people, most trans people do sex work. I wish that we were in a climate where trans people weren't forced to do sex work, because while I support every trans person's right to do it, a lot of them do feel forced.
You just said most and nobody
that's
pushed
true.
back at
That's
all.
not true.
Yeah, is that true?
No.
I think most trans women at some point, even though they're doing it now, have done sex work at some point. Whether it's escorting, OnlyFans. I don't know if that's really
I'd
considered
say a
sex
lot,
work,
but I don't know about most. I mean, there's a lot.
what
of
do you
trans
think? You know this word.
In my opinion,
Definitely back in the day, yes.
Yes.
I know that for sure. But nowadays, there's a lot of.
in my experience, trans women, not necessarily trans men.
Yeah. I mean,
Because
there's-
I think
it's
it's
a
a
huge
different
part of our
space for
culture.
trans women.
It
I
is.
think
Yeah,
trans women
yeah.
have a harder time on many levels, where I could grow a beard and put a jacket on, and
Do you
people
think
would
it's
see me.
harmful to the trans community that so many of us are sex workers?
No.
No, not at all. I think that it's a great way for, listen, until recently, you couldn't get hired at a regular job. Now you have Target and Starbucks. If you're trans, you're going to get a job, right? And I think that in some ways that's great, because we do need a leg up in that sense. But I'm speaking more to the people who, I moved to LA a few years ago. I moved out recently, but when I was living in LA, I first got here, I started becoming friends with all these trans women, making all these like besties with all these like Instagram trans women. And I'm like, I'm thinking they're all like rich from Instagram and shit. And it's like, oh no, they're all escorting.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the case with women in general who are Instagram influencers. But
I was gonna say
the
not
reality,
just trans girls.
but we can all agree a lot of trans women do sex work. We can disagree on the word most or whatever, but I just wish trans people had more options. That's my only thing.
I think it's the
Well, I
best
mean,
fucking
like,
option.
They do have
personally.
options, but the
And I'm
reason
glad you
why
can make it.
the reason why they feel forced into it is because like a lot of them are kind of like, I hate to say it, they're like not as passable. So like they're like, I need to get these surgeries quick and ASAP. I can't.
Yeah.
My name
And it
isn't-
can be a way to do
It's
it.
kind of like
That's how
my
I
name isn't
started.
change. Yeah, they're like my
Hell
name's
yeah.
not change yet. My
Right.
face
Fucking
is
became
like
who
not
I am.
it. And so they go into sex work because it's quick, it's
Yeah.
easy, and so they get that money to get their surgeries to go apply for regular jobs. And then once you make that much money, it's hard to go back.
It's hard to
like-
go back. Yeah.
Yes.
And I get it. And also a lot of us come from broken homes.
Mhm.
A lot of us don't really have parents like that. And if we do, they're not cool with it, or they're abusive or whatever. Not everyone. So a lot of us find what are called trans mothers, right? Like we move to a big city and we meet an older trans woman. There
My
you go.
mother.
There you go. and they'll show you the way because that's the way they knew, and so it's part of the culture. But I don't know. The options are increasing, which is great.
I
but-
think it's really actually kind of cool that so many trans people do sex work, because I think sex work is a fucking awesome job, and I think that I'm just so proud of it, and I think that it's amazing, and it's so cool that girls can make so much money and be independent. And I actually don't think there's any kind of issue with like a lot of trans people doing it. I wish people didn't feel forced into doing sex work in general. of
Devil's
course.
advocate. It's dangerous and it's illegal.
Not all sex work is illegal.
I just know people at home are thinking that, and I mean, there's got to be at least
Not all
some
sex
true to
work
it,
is
right?
illegal,
That's right.
And I agree with you that it is dangerous.
Right.
and a lot of trans murders are from that exact scenario.
I know, but it's just, I'm gonna tell you, you know, my life, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for my job. I love my job. I firmly will stand with that. Like,
So as a trans woman sex worker,
I'll
do
never
you-
retire.
Yo, we just hit 400,000 subscribers right here on the Clips channel. So if you want to help us out, click subscribe, get us to 500K. Yeah.